In 1851, in a quiet London chess club, two great minds faced off, Adolf Anderssen and Lionel Kieseritzky. What followed became one of the most beautiful chess games in history. It's called the Immortal game, a brilliant display of sacrifice, vision, and creativity. Let's explore it, move by move. Anderssen, playing white, starts with pawn to e4, controlling the center and opening lines for his pieces. Kieseritzky responds with pawn to e5, equal central control. Now white offers a bold sacrifice with pawn to f4, the king's gambit. He's giving up a pawn to open lines for an early attack. Black accepts with pawn captures, pawn on f4. Anderssen is down material, but gains momentum. Next, white plays bishop to c4, eyeing black's weak f7 square. Kieseritzky checks with queen to h4. This early queen move looks dangerous, but it can become overextended. Anderssen calmly steps aside with king to f1. He gives up the right to castle, but keeps the game dynamic. Black plays pawn to b5, trying to dislodge the bishop and gain space. White accepts the pawn with bishop captures pawn on b5. He's staying active and grabbing material. Now black develops knight to f6, finally bringing out a piece and protecting key squares. White develops knight to f3. The queen retreats slightly with queen to h6. Not very active, but keeps pressure on the king's side. White plays pawn to d3, defending the center and opening his dark-squared bishop. Black jumps in with knight to h5, trying to set up pressure on f4 and possibly g3, but Anderssen counters cleverly with knight to h4, challenging the position of black's queen. Black's queen moves again, this time to g5, attacking both g2 and trying to hold pressure. White leaps forward with knight to f5. Both knights are now deep in enemy territory. The pressure is mounting. Black responds with pawn to c6, trying to push the bishop away and gain center control. White ignores it and plays pawn to g4, threatening to trap the queen and kick away defenders. The knight retreats to f6. White brings the rook out with rook to g1. This is highly unusual. The rook is on an open file, ready to attack, and the king remains exposed. Black finally captures with pawn takes bishop on b5. White pushes pawn to h4, continuing the kingside pawn storm. Black moves the queen again to g6. White plays pawn to h5, forcing the queen to retreat once more. The queen moves back to g5, trying to hold the position. Anderssen brings in queen to f3, adding another piece to the attack. Black retreats the knight all the way to g8, a defensive but passive choice. Now comes the brilliant sacrifice. Bishop takes pawn on f4. White gives up his light-squared bishop to rip open the center. Black replies with queen to f6, trying to cover key squares. White brings in knight to c3, developing with tempo and aiming for central domination. Black plays bishop to c5, developing and threatening to castle by hand. But white now jumps with knight to d5, placing a knight deep in enemy territory. Black gets greedy and plays queen captures pawn on b2, threatening the rook on a1. But Anderssen ignores the threat and plays bishop to d6, placing a second piece on prise, offering another sacrifice. Black accepts, playing bishop captures rook on g1. Now he's up major material. Anderssen pushes pawn to e5, opening the center even more. This is where it all starts to come together. Black grabs the rook with queen, takes rook on a1. White calmly plays king to e2, stepping into the center to avoid back rank issues. Black develops knight to a6, aiming to bring it back toward the king's side, but it's already too late. Anderssen now plays knight captures pawn on g7 with check. Black is forced to move the king to d8, and now, brilliance, queen to f6, offering the queen as a sacrifice. If black declines, he's lost. He accepts. Knight captures queen on f6 and the final blow, bishop to e7, checkmate. The black king is trapped. All of Anderssen's heavy pieces are gone, but his knights and bishops have woven a perfect net. Let's recap. Anderssen sacrificed both rooks, his queen, and a bishop, still checkmated with only 3 minor pieces. That's pure attacking art. The Immortal game isn't just famous for its beauty. It's a masterclass in piece activity, coordination, and the courage to sacrifice for long-term gain. It's a reminder that in chess, initiative and creativity can outshine material. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of chess's most famous game, give it a like and subscribe for more legendary games explained move by move. See you on the next one.